with your host, Ray Grabowski.
Here's Ray.
Hi everybody, welcome to the year 2022 and another episode of Me Clifton. Tonight we're going to do something a little different. Sometimes we take outtakes of other shows, and that's what we're going to do this time. The cast and the crew picked a few of their favorite guests, and we're going to be showing that shortly. And one of my favorite ones was from the very beginning when we had Norma Smith, unfortunately passed away, but her segment was really loved by everyone. She talked about the Hamilton House and the traditions, so we're really looking forward to that, so we want to show that. So in the meantime, sit back. We'll be right back.
Tonight on Meet Clifton, we'll be bringing you some of our show's most memorable moments, along with current updates from Sharon and friend of the show, Kate Webb. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another episode of Meet Clifton.
I know God because I'm staying there 3 more days. The world outside it bugs me anyway. Things are going, am I going?
My next guest tonight is going to bring us a little bit of history of Clifton. She's been with this organization, or this place that we're going to talk about, for quite a while. I'd like to bring on my next guest, Norma Smith. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Norma, thanks for coming on our show. Norma Smith is a curator for the Hamilton House Museum. I got that right, I hope. Yeah. Which has been in Clifton obviously a long time. It has a lot of history. But first I want to ask you one question, because I know how long have you been working for them?
I've been working for the museum just about 11 years now.
Right.
I've been a curator. I've been a volunteer there since the museum opened, but I've been the curator about 11 years.
Okay, and to tie this all in, how old is the Hamilton House? Just
well,
date-wise.
Parts of the house were built, the newest part was built in 1815, and the other part of the house we're not exactly sure, but it was built probably in the mid-1700s.
Okay, so I guess what I'm driving at is Norma Smith. Smith is a big name in Clifton. So how long has your family been in Clifton?
Oh, my family came to Clifton in 1887. My grandfather came from Brooklyn to get away from the city, and he was what you call a gentleman farmer. He would travel back and forth by railroad by train to Brooklyn. He was an accountant over there, and he had about 50 acres of property in Clifton on Grove Street. It wasn't called Grove Street then, it was called Railroad Street. And up until just about 4 years ago, my sister lived in the old family house, which was built in 1887. And if anybody's familiar with the area, you see they knocked it down. But I don't blame the people, because the house was over 200 years old, over 100 years old. And up until about 4 years ago, I lived next door in my family home, my mother and father's home.
So I guess there's some irony there that your family's been here and now you're the curator for the museum.
I think so. I'm very happy. You want me to tell you a little bit about the museum?
Yeah, just a little bit about it, because
Okay.
I don't even know that much about it.
The museum was originally located across the street and down a little bit, and actually the whole name of the house is the Hamilton Wagner Van Riper home, but most people just call it the Hamilton House. And why it was called, those are the names of the families that lived there. And the last man was Mr. Hamilton, and when he died, it was in his will that the house either be moved to another location or knocked down. The developers that bought the property, which is now Hamilton Crest Condominiums, asked the city if they'd like the house to be moved over, and it was moved over in October of 1973. Hundreds of people lined the road to watch it being moved. It was something really spectacular. About 3 years later, the house was opened up to the public, and we've been open now for over 40 years. The museum is usually open on Sundays from 2 to 5, except in the wintertime, like January and February, and other times by appointment. One of the biggest groups that we have are the school children that come, the third graders come from the Clifton schools, and they're learning about the history of Clifton and the history of New Jersey. So it's kind of fun having the children. They can't imagine how people could live without telephones and television and all the computers. And when I'm talking to them, they're taking all these pictures with their phones and different things. And it's really exciting. It's very challenging because they do ask a lot of questions. So when the house was moved over, there was nothing left from the original house. And what they did is they created a Hamilton House Association, Restoration Association, and basically it's me and the lady that's the president of the board, Arlene Bayou. We do most of the work. We do have a board and they help out, and I do have, very fortunate, have a group of crafters who meet on Wednesday who volunteer and help do a lot of help with the museum. The house is decorated in 3 different time periods: early American, Victorian, and Federal. And that's what, and we show how people live in the different time periods. What?
Just backing up to a question, because I know Jacqueline had a question. We talked about this before the show.
Yes, I understood that Mr. Hamilton had his will. It was stipulated that he wanted the house moved
Right.
or torn down before so no one outside of the family bought the home. That
Right.
was my first, well, that was one of my questions. But the other one was, I understand that the house was inherited to him from a spinster sister?
Right, that's right, he did have 4 sisters, and all of them died before him.
Okay.
Actually, he was an unusual person, Mr. Hamilton. One day he says to his sisters, "I'm going to market to get fish." Now that was very common. He could walk right down Valley Road and into Patterson to the market, and he didn't return. He didn't return. And evidently he had done it many other times. And about 5 years later, they get a letter. "Hi, I'm in California. I'm getting married. Why don't you come join me?" Well, they didn't. And so about a year later, he returned with a wife and a daughter. And he had joined the Merchant Marines. Evidently, from what we figure, there must have been a recruiter at the market. And he joined the Merchant Marines, and he was gone. But he did it other times. But he did return with a package of fish that he said he was going to go with, not the original package.
And he only had one
He only had one
child,
daughter.
right?
Actually, he was a very hard man to get along with, from what I understand. And his wife only lasted about a year with him, and then she moved down to Texas with the daughter. And the daughter was very helpful in the beginning of when we were starting out the museum, and given history of the family and like that. But she passed away. She was an author. She wrote many books ago, but she passed away.
So actually, I've never been there, and I know I've been promising her I'm going to
You've been
come and see it.
promising, yeah.
But I also know Jacqueline's never
I've
been
never
there
been
either.
there, no.
So we're going to make an appointment, because I'm sure we'll see a lot of nice things.
Yes.
But before we end this segment, I have to ask you.
Oh, what do I have
something
here?
in your hand here,
Yes.
so if you could just quickly
Okay, what
explain that, I
this-
appreciate it.
What this is a toaster.
Oh.
And the fire would be here,
Okay.
and you'd put your toast
bread.
inside here, and then when you wanted to turn around with your toe, the women's with their toe, they would turn it like this and turn it around,
Oh,
and that is
wow.
why they call it a toaster.
Oh.
And you'll see a lot of, it's something a
know
little
that.
bit different.
I didn't
And
know
what
that.
this is, unfortunately, it's not in working condition right now because I dropped it
You
in
want
my
me to hold
car.
that for you?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
This is a cording candle. Whoops, it's okay. This is a cording candle, and what they used to do, pretend the candle's up here. Now, a long time ago, girls and boys couldn't be left alone until after they were married. So what would happen, a boy would go to the father and say, "I would like to court your daughter," and he would come over, and of course, the couple might be sitting here, but the rest of the family was in the room. Now, the father would say to the girl before the boy came, you can court with him till the candle goes down. Now, if he liked the boy, he would give him a lot of time to be with each other. If he didn't, he would turn it down really low and only a little bit of time. So that's what they call a courting candle. We do have a lot of men that do buy them. In fact, my brother-in-law bought one for my niece.
I'll have to send
I
my
don't think-
husband
yeah.
there.
There we go.
Yeah, and so but there's a lot of interesting things, and we talk about the history of the house, a little bit about the history of Clifton. We do know that the Clifton City is celebrating this year and next year the 100th anniversary,
Yes.
yes.
and a lot of nice things are coming up. Can I talk that the International Day is coming up? That's going to be on October 15th. It's we felt that when we made the committee that a lot of people drive through Clifton and they see all these different ethnic restaurants and they really don't know what the food is about. So we thought that we would have this. We have many different people coming in from different restaurants, different groups, to show the food, their food of their food, and also do dancing and crafts and things like that. It's free. It's at the high school. I think it's from 10 to 5. I forget what time for sure, but it's about those times. And I hope many people come out. It's a free event. And we've had good responses to things that we've had so far. We started off with a beefsteak dinner. We didn't think we were going to get as many people, and all of a sudden we wound up with over 500 people. So I really hope the citizens do support not only the museum, but also come out to different things in the Centennial. And also your are welcome to make, groups can come, and anytime you want to come, if you call up and make an appointment. Thank you.
No, thank
Very
you, and,
nice.
we'll do updates at
Okay.
some, but I want to thank you for coming on.
Okay,
You
it's
learned
my
a lot
pleasure.
of
Yes.
information that I didn't know. Stay tuned, we'll be right back with our next guest. Thank you. Tonight I have a special guest, a friend of mine, Kate Webb, from Clifton, New Jersey. She's a graduate of Clifton High School the year 2012, and now she attends the Center for Enhancing Abilities Progressive in Morristown. In one of her classes, they took on a project which she is really involved in, where they're collecting different things for children, and it goes to hospitals for children from birth till 24, and then arts and crafts, what they're going to collect. And actually, I'm just going to let Kate explain what the program is all about. Kate, if you can just tell us a little bit about this program.
What Sciatic Cares is, it's basically, it teaches us what we can do to help our community. Like one semester we did a food drive for animals. The year before that, it was a human food drive. And this year we're doing an art donation for kids that are in hospitals.
Okay, and now how does this program get started? Did you start, or it's all
It was my teacher's idea.
the teacher's idea, and you're actually the advocate for it?
Yeah.
And what we're trying to, what I want her to explain is, what do we have to do to help you? How do we help you?
We need like art supplies that could be like made into like small enough that could be made into like little art kits.
Okay. So what we're going to make appeal for is
It
here.
needs to be new though.
No, of course. So we're asking for art supplies.
Yeah.
What's an example? Like, what could someone
Like
donate?
coloring books,
Okay.
pencils,
Right.
paints.
Paints. Okay. Any arts and crafts type thing?
Yeah, gel pens, canvases. Let's see what else.
Well, when we get all of these things, and we're going to hope a lot of people donate, what's going to happen now? Let's say.
They're going to make them into kits. They're going to put them into bags and make them into like kits for the kids, and they're going to distribute them to different hospitals in New Jersey.
Okay, and can I ask you this too? When we get all these donations, and I'm sure everyone's going to be generous enough to give us a lot, will you accept also cash money?
We accept both.
Okay. So if you get the cash, then someone in the
Mhm.
program will buy the supplies. Right. And who's going to distribute these? Will you go to the hospitals?
We will send the donations to the foundation.
Foundation, okay. Okay, and your program is based out of Morristown?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know you're almost like the sponsor of this program, which is great. And how did they come up with this idea, like arts and crafts? It was part of your class, it was like a class project, I would assume.
All I know is that the founder of the foundation started because her little sister was in like stage 4 bone cancer.
Oh, okay. So, in essence, all these supplies are basically going to go to children in the hospitals that
Yeah.
really have severe disabilities, I would think, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or get really bored during recovery.
Okay, board during, okay. Well, this is good because we're going to do a lot for young kids. I know you did something here. You want to show some of your work?
I should know because
Yeah.
I've had 31 neurosurgeries and it's no picnic.
So this is-
Just finished that today.
So this is some of Kate's artwork, and she spent a lot of time in hospitals herself, so I think she can appreciate what these people in the hospitals are going through. And I don't know if you had that kind of help when you were in the hospitals, but I know you now want to give back to the
Yeah.
community.
I just know what it's like to be in their shoes.
Right, exactly. So, and I'm sure that you would appreciate this too if you were there, something like this.
Yeah.
So what would you like to say to the people, just in general? What kind of message do you want to get out there?
If you're too busy to do the supply donation, you can also donate money.
Okay, so our big appeal is, we're going to put the information down underneath this segment, the Facebook where you can get in touch with Kate, or a Gmail, and we ask everyone to be generous and donate these things. Information, please contact them on the Gmail, ask them what they need, and Kate's make sure that they're going to get this to the children that need it. So whatever we could do, Kate, I appreciate this. This is a great effort on your part. This is something, you're not being selfish. This is a great thing. And I know because you've been through it, so you can appreciate it. So thank you very much. We'll be right back. Thank you, Kate. Tonight is a special person, a good friend of mine, a chiropractor from Clifton. Welcome, Dr. Joe LaCitra.
George, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Nice seeing you tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming on. I know a lot of people have back problems, and I think one of the biggest problems I think today, and you hear it all the time, is sciatica. So for those of us that aren't familiar with the term, maybe you could explain sciatica.
Sure. Sure. Many people suffer from sciatica. 30 million at any given time in the United States. I'm going to show you right now. George is going to hold this.
There you go, George. You have a job.
Yeah. This is the human nervous system here. If you look at the brain controls everything that runs down the entire spine. Arm pain, mid-thoracic pain, and down here is the bad guy that we're talking about tonight, the sciatic nerve. We have two of the sciatic nerves. If you look over here on this side, this is the red side. That's the one that's inflamed. People that have inflamed sciatic nerves really live a life of misery. There are many different things that happen with people with sciatica. They have difficulty standing, sitting, bending. They can't go to work. Tremendous economic strain on the cities, on the companies, and on the families. If you take this one here, George, please.
Sure.
Okay. What are some of the symptoms of sciatica? Some of the early warning signs, which I'm sure a lot of people out there have seen. The first thing you see is pulling down the leg. That's a sign that the sciatic nerve is starting to trigger. That's not a good sign. After that, the numbness and the tingling can come. People can actually not feel their leg. They'll come into my office many times and say, Doc, I can't feel my leg. And there's a loss of what they call motor control or the movement of that leg. That's a cause for great concern. And then there's the pain. Pain is generally really bad in sciatic patients. As I said before, people can't sit, they can't stand, they can't bend, they can't roll over in bed. They can't find a comfortable position. I'm sure many people have been there before.
Oh, sure. A lot of people suffer from sciatica. And I have a quick question, too, because you hear people say, they're okay one day, and all of a sudden, it's, my sciatica is acting up. Does it come and go?
Yes, that's a great question. It can come and go. Depending on the etiology or the reason for the sciatica, it can come and go. A good clinician is going to determine what the etiology is or the origin of the sciatic condition, which will lead us to our next slide.
You're good at this, George.
George, you're excellent, George.
I'm good at something.
So when we look at the lumbar vertebrae over here, these sit on top of the sacrum. The sacrum is the hard bone in the middle of your behind back there, and this balances out the lumbar discs. L4 and L5 control the distribution of the sciatic nerve through that area, as well as S1, which is the sacral base. When people start to have sciatic conditions, the sacral base starts to move, putting pressure on the disc. I'm sure you've heard of people that have had disc problems.
Sure.
And
plenty of people.
Plenty of people, right? And there's two different types of disc problems. There's what we call a disc bulge. So if you imagine the disc as a jelly donut, the outer part of the jelly donut will swell. That's called the bulge. The inside, the red part, is called the nucleus pulposus. If that breaks through that jelly donut, That's known as a herniated disc. Very, very, very severe condition, really debilitating. I've had people literally carried into my office to get treatment for that. And I'm sure you've seen friends like that that just,
Sure.
they can't even walk.
Sure.
How do you treat this condition?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
Me too.
First, I'd like to know what causes it.
Okay.
What causes a sciatica?
Okay, that's a great
You
question.
know,
Okay.
work-related?
It can be work-related, which is if you have construction workers or masons. I have a lot of masons I treat. Repetitive bending on that lumbar spine over there is really, really severe on the disc area. And some of these guys do it for 30, 40 years. There's times they would love to stop, but they can't because they're trying to take care of their families. I treat a lot of athletes, so you can have direct trauma right into the spine, especially football players, helmet to helmet. You see the hits they have. The football players today are bigger, they're faster, and they're stronger. I've been on the sidelines at St. Mary's, and some of the hits I've seen is just atrocious. You wonder how they get up. But if you don't straighten out the trauma initially, this will start to linger because the sacral base over here is going to start to move. When it moves, now the disc, which is over here in between the bones, is no longer in the center of gravity. And now you start to get wear and tear. And then you get degeneration, which is another cause of sciatica. A degenerative disc does not allow enough room for the nerve to come out. So these are the extreme things that you have to know as a clinician to what has to be fixed. Another cause is muscular impingement. So if you look at right here, this is called the piriformis muscle. So a lot of times people are treating the sciatic nerve from up in this area. And I, as a kinesiologist, can actually muscle test the piriformis to say, wait a second, it's not coming from here, it's actually coming from an entrapment, okay, of this muscle, which is right through the middle of your butt. And that's caused by a lot of times people, we sit all day long, we don't, we're sedentary. People that are long car rides. How many times when you get out of a car ride do you get out and you're very stiff? You get out of there like you're 85 years old. All right, so that's how do you treat it? What do we do? Okay, there's different methods of treatment.
Right.
One of the things we do is we put electric stim over the area initially to bring the inflammation down, generally about 15 minutes in duration. What is also advisable, and this is to the people at home, the minute you start to get back pain, start with ice. Okay, 20 minutes of ice over that area. A good chiropractor will start to balance out this spine to get the bones in place. And as a kinesiologist, I not only get the bones in place, but I also work on the different musculature. You have to know what muscles to fix. Okay, one of the main muscles that is really overlooked, okay, and this is not the best picture in the world, it's a little cloudy, but here is the lumbar spine again. If you look at this muscle right here, this is called the psoas muscle. This is the major flexor of your lumbar spine. When you go down,
Right.
this is what brings you down. If you've ever seen people with bad back pain,
Right.
you notice how they list to the side sometimes. It looks like they're walking to the side. That's psoas muscle spasm.
Okay, so we have a lot of information. I understand the back is an important issue. And I know we're not recommending or advocating any type of treatment, but we have a chiropractor and a kinesiologist here. What the message you want to leave the people tonight, if they have back problems, would be?
There is hope. You cannot live without hope.
Thanks for being on our show.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Clifton and friends, and welcome to the updates. I'm Sharon Korbanix, and always happy to be here with you. Well, we have a few things that are happening. Remember, the Boys and Girls Club of Clifton is still having their fundraising event, and it will be servicing 5,000 families. So they are having this until March 31st, so please donate as much as you can to the Clifton Boys and Girls Club. Without this, where would the children have been? So wanted to let you know about that. Located right on Clifton Avenue in Clifton, so please call them if you need any more details. Now, also a fun event, the Clifton Elks Lodge will have a dinner dance March 12th. They will have live music, with the Swingmen and the Misfit Mutts. There's also dinner. It's $40 per person. They are limiting how many people will be there, so please call 973-473-9752 to get your tickets early. Plan to have a good time. They always have a great time together, and it is for a good cause, and that's for the Clifton Elks Club, again on Clifton Avenue. And on the same date, March 12th, the Athenia Vets Post is also having a fundraiser. So please give them a call. They're located on Huron Avenue, and they'd be happy to give you all the details. Again, that's Athenia Vets Post, and that is March 12th. Now, the Clifton Arts Center has been busy. They have virtual events and some things on display as well, but please call the Clifton Arts Center for details because the hours have changed just because of the situation currently. But they were also featured on 101.5 about their sculpture park outside on the grounds. So when the weather warms up, please definitely walk around the grounds and have a great time looking at all the different sculptures that were donated. And if you want to brave the snow, walk around in the snow and look at the sculptures. And also, happy Valentine's Day, that's coming up, wearing red. And just as a reminder, if you haven't gotten a heart doctor appointment yet, please do so. You never know what's happening inside. We know you have big hearts, so please check that out. So we want to keep you healthy, happy for a long time. And we do enjoy seeing you around town. We appreciate your support, and thank you so much for tuning in. It's my pleasure to talking with you again.
My next guest is going to speak about something very important. That's giving back, where we donate blood, which is very important. And I know there's a giant shortage, so I'd like to welcome Rob Hatch. He's the manager of mobile recruitment of Vitalant.
Vitalant, you got it.
Vitalant
You got it.
Blood
Absolutely.
Services
Good job.
Northeast
See, first
Division.
shot. You got it.
I know, I'm trying. Well, now you have to explain what Vitalant is.
Absolutely, of course. First of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for
It's been a
coming.
couple years. So before even Vitalant, we were formerly Community Blood Services. We were a small, independent local blood center in New Jersey, northern New Jersey. There were actually a couple of us blood centers back then. And I was speaking to Diane before. A lot of us over the years have merged into one center, one central location. So Vitalant, we're the nation's largest leading independent and not-for-profit blood service provider. So our job essentially is to providing blood and blood products and transfusion medicine needs to the local public and our local hospitals. I think across the nation right now we have about approximately 120 donor centers. Here in New Jersey alone, which I'm part of, we have 4. We're in Paramus, Lincoln Park, Parsippany, and I'm stationed at the Montvale office.
Okay, so how long have you been involved?
How much time you got? All right, we got, it's been a while. I started in blood banking when I was 18 years old, and that was just, I hear you.
Wow.
18 years old, just a senior in high school needing nothing more than a part-time job, and I was actually on the phones calling donors, getting them to come in. So I would call the town of Clifton, Hackensack, Paramus, get them to come to our donor sites to donate blood, and then went through college. Sure enough, got my degree, and that turned into getting promoted, luckily for me, a couple times, and I stuck with it. I learned a lot, and it's just all about giving, which I know the show is about today.
Absolutely.
And it's a feel-good thing to do. So 21 years and counting, I'm on.
Okay, and the company you're with now, do they have a specific mission?
Yeah, I would say, again, how much time you get? I can go on all day. I would say at the end of the day, our main mission, amongst many, is ensuring that the hospitals we do service, they have the blood and blood products that they need for patients at all times, when and where they need it. And that's based on all of the wonderful donors that we have in Passaic County, Bergen County, Hudson County, throughout New Jersey, I would even say, and New York, and the blood drive coordinators and the locations that allow us to actually host blood drives. And a lot of people actually ask me all the time, so I donated blood, Rob, where's my blood going? I get that a lot. So with the mission being said, it'll go to cancer patients, leukemia patients, a burn victim in a fire, gunshot victim, stab victim, open heart surgeries, you name it. So we rely on the public, and they've been helping us out big time.
What local hospitals?
Yeah,
Are you affiliated with any ones
specific?
around?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Vitalant, we are the 100% supplier of Hackensack Meridian, which, and if anybody knows Hackensack, Hackensack, that's a biggie.
Yeah.
They are the big one. I was born there when I was a little guy,
Really?
So I grew up in Hackensack actually, but the hospitals, Hackensack Meridian is not just the Hackensack location anymore. Now it covers.
All over. It's all over.
You see Hackensack Meridian signs all over the place, so that encompasses Palisades Medical Center is now part of them. Pascack Valley over in Westwood. Even down the shore, Ocean Medical and Jersey Shore Medical, they're all part of Hackensack now. And then we have our secondary hospitals that we supply as well. So we have Valley Hospital in Ridgewood. I'm trying to think other ones. Trinitas in Jersey City, Englewood Hospital. All those hospitals, it is our job to collect the blood and make sure we send it to them for their transfusion needs.
Okay, now I recently was watching on the news where the blood, I guess there's a great need for that now. So why is it important right now for our communities to really give back?
To that point, I would say, the past 18 months, 2 years, we've all struggled with COVID. That all came down, the pandemic. And it was really weird because, we were doing blood drives everywhere. We had one set up, Clifton High School, ready to go. And then all of a sudden, the pandemic hit, and that had to be canceled, unfortunately, to no one's fault, of course, for safety reasons. So we relied so heavily on our community donors to come out and donate, because if we think about it, high schools were closed down, everyone was remote learning, there were no colleges open, remote learning, so we couldn't do blood drives in the education spots. Then corporate offices, anytime we did blood drives at the corporate level, everyone was working from home during the pandemic, so we couldn't do blood drives there. So it's been, the past 18 months has been relying so heavily on our community to come out and do blood drives at VFW posts, at local churches, organizations, things of that nature. And it's been overwhelming, the response we have had. And I don't want to say COVID's been a good thing for us by any means, but I guess the silver lining has been a lot of first-timers have come out and wanted to help. Everyone just came out saying, hey, what can we do to help? And to your point, once you've seen the need on the news or on the radio, what have you, people really do just want to roll up a sleeve for an hour and give a pint of blood and help.
Especially if someone has been helped with blood.
Oh, big time. Yeah, absolutely.
Then all of a sudden they become big advocates
They
of
get
blood
it,
drives.
big time.
And I know you've worked a lot with the Clifton Health Department.
Yes. We've done blood drives there. I know we've done blood drives, and I know a lot of the police officers actually donate when we do a blood drive there. We're going to try to spearhead Clifton High School once that they get back into order. I know they're still adjusting to their new schedule. And I know we do the Stop and Shop over on Broad Street, is it? Broad Street?
Yes.
We do bring the bloodmobile there. And Clifton is such a huge, one of the largest cities in North Jersey as it is.
And
so
the best.
And of course, I was leaving that for you. Absolutely. They're a wonderful donor base, and a lot of churches let us set up as well. So they've been nothing but helpful during this time, and if they can continue to do so, we would greatly appreciate it.
Great. And lastly, on my notes, I have New Blood Donor Initiative.
Yes, of course, the New Blood Donor Initiative. Like anything else, I would say, I've been there 20 plus years, and donors age out. They've been giving blood since the 40s or 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, what have you, and then they just say, you know what, I've done my time, I'm a gallon donor, multi-gallon donor, and they age out, and they feel maybe they're too old, or they want to make sure their health comes first. So every day we constantly need new blood donors to fulfill this need. So, last year alone we collected, Vitalant-wide, 75,000 plus first-time donors. And again, I think that was the result partially of the pandemic too, because a lot of people were at home, not working or working from home, saying, what can I do to help? And they came out and donated blood for the first time. And we need over 100,000 donors a year, first-timers, to supplement all of the surgeries and everything happening. So to that point, a lot of surgeries when the pandemic hit were actually kind of put off and put on hold. There were limits in people that can go into hospitals. People weren't traveling as much. They weren't going down the shore. Now all of a sudden things are starting to open up and have been for a while. So there are a lot more, the surgeries are happening now. So now we need to supply the hospitals. They're breathing down our necks for it. There are unfortunately a lot of automobile accident victims. Whereas a year during the pandemic, I don't know if you remember, no one was on the road. So unfortunately now all that's picking up, which again, it's great to see it picking up, but now we're putting the pedal to the metal, and the hospitals need blood desperately. And we don't manufacture it, we get it from donors, we get it from the public.
Okay, so in essence, tragedy, unfortunately, creates necessity.
Necessity, yeah, I was just going to say.
Necessity people step up to the plate.
Big time.
And being that this is a show about giving back, this is very, very important. So I'd like to send a message out there. If you have the opportunity and you can, please give back in a gift of blood. You may save someone's life. Rob, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be right back. My next guest, I'm happy to have him, Dr. Elliott Brown. Thank you, Doc, for coming on. I appreciate it. We asked Dr. Brown to come on because there's a lot of topics that doctors can talk about, but we're going to work on stroke tonight. Doc, maybe just a definition or something about stroke so we understand where we're going to go.
So as a cardiovascular physician, you deal with heart attacks and strokes very often. So a stroke would be a brain attack. And patients will say to me, I'd rather die of a heart attack than survive a stroke because it often leaves a person disabled, they can't swallow, they're a shell of themselves. And so stroke prevention would be really the best treatment and is a large part of what we do.
So we're gonna talk. I know they get mixed up with heart attack and stroke. Now you just explained it's a brain problem, right?
Right.
So heart attack is completely.
A heart attack would be injury to the heart muscle, chest pain, completely different.
But just real quick, if you have a heart attack, can it be followed up by a stroke? Maybe by some complications?
Possibly. So, of all of the causes of stroke, heart attack would be a small one.
Okay.
But one of the things that we had kind of discussed about talking tonight is the most common, is atrial fibrillation, which is a very common irregular rhythm that causes little clots to form and go to the brain to cause the stroke.
Afib, right? That's what we're talking about.
Afib would be what most people know it as.
Maybe we could explain that Afib a little bit more and ways to prevent the stroke. Because can you prevent the stroke?
So the most common abnormal rhythm in people is atrial fibrillation, and that is generally a non-life-threatening irregular heartbeat. But the problem is, and this would be an example of a heart where you have 1, 2, 3, 4 chambers, would be that in atrial fibrillation, the atria, or the top parts, are quivering. And so if the blood is sitting in the nooks and crannies on the top, it can form little clots, and if that goes into the bloodstream to the brain, that's a stroke. So if a person develops atrial fibrillation, they're a prime candidate of people you want to key into for stroke prevention.
How do you determine if they have AFib?
So unfortunately, some people don't feel it, but many people will feel the palpitations, getting an EKG at your doctor's office, at your annual physical exam. Sometimes people have a blood pressure machine at home and it beeps irregular and they'll bring it to the doctor's attention. But it's by an EKG would be how you would make the diagnosis.
So I know there's been a lot of progress made. Prior to this, though, the choices were blood thinners?
Correct. So in order to stop the little clots from forming, people would take blood thinners. But unfortunately, as patients get older, they develop back arthritis, they're unstable walking, they could fall down, they may get Parkinson's, they may have blood in the urine, they may have any reason why a blood thinner is just not something that they can acceptably take in a good way. And so then they have to balance the risk of stroke to the risk of bleeding, and that has been a long time dilemma for cardiovascular doctors until relatively recently.
Right. So which brings us up to the topic of the Watchman.
Right. So I fortunately have gotten involved in a team at Valley Hospital where we insert these devices. This is what a Watchman looks like. I'll hand you one.
Thank you.
Springy. And so if this is the heart, there is a little chamber that's about a comma shape, and that's where about 90% of the clots form that dislodge and go to the brain to cause stroke in the AFib patient. So technology has developed a way that we can go up through the leg and make a little puncture in the top wall of the heart and put this Watchman device, such as like a manhole cover, over the chamber so that clots can't get out and cause the stroke. And so a patient who would have this inserted would continue their blood thinner for 6 weeks. And then a special ultrasound echocardiogram would look at it and show that the skin actually grew over it. And it's then safe to come off the blood thinner in lieu of an aspirin a day for the rest of their lives, basically.
Risks?
So So first of all, the success is 92% of the patients will come off the blood thinner at the 6-week, 99% after 1 year.
Wow.
There's about a 2% risk in the initial trials. We're at 1.6% at Valley, but there have been no mortalities. Risks include internal bleeding, pneumonia from, anesthesia and going down the wrong pipe, but overall, a very successsul procedure with a very low downside.
So probably not that much risk of rejection because we're putting a foreign body.
There is no risk of rejection. So this is made of the same thing that coronary stents are made out of, and it's called nitinol. It is an alloy of aluminum and tungsten steel. And the miracle of this alloy is that it can go in, let's say, a blood vessel, you see, and a biological thing that is living and breathing and moving, it will retain its shape, but yet it will deform to a blood vessel or a chamber that's contracting in the heart. And so that's how these implants work.
Obviously, realistically, so an average person that they're watching the show, and they say, gee, am I at risk of a stroke? They would come in, let's say, to see your cardiologist, and would you run tests to see if...
Sure.
Is there a way to determine if it... I know it's hard to say, but down the road.
A general initial history and physical examination would include an EKG, which would immediately tell us if they were in Afib and at risk of getting a stroke. And then during the examination, we would listen to the carotid arteries, which is another major cause, and if necessary, get an ultrasound. But the vast majority and the crux of what I'm trying to educate people about today is that as your parent gets older, or your spouse, or yourself, and you have Afib, which is so common, you no longer have to fear being taken off blood thinners. You have a game changer that will allow you to come off them safely and yet enjoy an active lifestyle and not worry about falling down and suffering a significant injury or death.
Right. So is this relatively new technology?
So the Watchman was approved by the FDA in 2015. We've put in about 250 at the Valley Hospital. It's now on its second generation, so it looks a little different, and the safety has been perfected to a much lower than 2%. We've gotten a lot better, and the technology is such that the time to put them in have gone from about 45 minutes to 20. So it's here to stay, and it's a great option. And my mother had Afib, and she got one, and it's something I highly recommend for somebody that's not a good blood thinner candidate.
And could it be also used for younger people? Not necessarily always older, right?
Usually not. Usually it's the older person that would have more risk factors such that they would need to be on the blood thinner long term. Younger people sometimes don't need a full-fledged blood thinner, but a 50-year-old who has sleep apnea, who developed Afib, and says, hey, I ski with my family and I have an active life, they would be a great candidate to have something like this, so they can only be on an aspirin and not a blood thinner.
So basically what you're saying is this is a great alternative to blood thinners. 100%. It's basically what we're talking about
exactly.
Here, is getting people off blood thinners with something that's a permanent fix.
In the initial trials with Watchman, there's an improvement in mortality rate in the Watchman patient over the blood thinner patient by 27% because you get them off the blood thinner. So if you accept the small risk up front with the procedure, the long-term mortality improvement is a no-brainer for the patient and the doctor.
Right, because I think the pros outweigh the cons, because you're like saying a blood thinner, if you're older, it could cause way more complications.
Exactly.
Than something like this that's a permanent solution.
You got the message.
So just really quickly, if someone watching something and they want to know more about the Watchman, how do they do this?
Well, I've been in Clifton for 27 years, Dr. Elliott Brown. I'm one of 2 imagers during the implants at the Valley Hospital, so I'm intimately connected with the program and care deeply about it. I'm right here in town on Clifton Avenue, as I've been, and open for business and any questions I can help anybody with.
Okay. I mean, certainly a lot of good information. I think this first time hearing of it, but obviously it would make sense. cut down the risks. So, Doc, I appreciate it. I hope I don't have to come in and get one, but we'll
Amen.
see. But I appreciate you coming on. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's our show for tonight. I hope you liked all the episodes that we have presented tonight for you to see. Some of them are repeats, but we found out that those are the ones that a lot of people like to see, and they were very informational. And also like to thank my special friend Kate Webb for coming on tonight with her appeal for the products that she wants to get for kids that go to the hospitals, arts and crafts, anything she had said in an interview, we're going to get that. Also, look out because Clifton's going to have a box in City Hall where people can drop things off. I don't think it's ready yet, but in the future it will be. You could call the city and ask when it'll be ready. But we know that Clifton's a very generous town, and we know everyone will donate. You could also donate money. We have an email address there and a phone number you could also call. So this is a great project that Kate's doing. It helps people directly. It's going to help a lot of kids in the hospitals with special disabilities and people that have been there for surgeries and need help. It's just a fun thing to do. So we really appreciate her stepping up to the plate and sponsoring this program. But in the meantime, be good to your friends and family, respect your neighbors, keep Clifton close to your heart. This is a great city. Thank you. God bless. Good night.